Go ahead and hit the record button. So hi, this is May 20th, 2020. This is the second Asia Pacific Chaos call. So thanks for joining everybody. The minutes are in the chat. Put them in there again. If you could click on that link and add yourself, that would be great. I think probably I should send out a call for participation for this meeting more regularly, as we're trying to get this off the ground. You know what I mean? I think the other ones are
Yeah,
all fairly well attended at this point. A lot are. So
yeah,
I'll put that
it's
on the to-do list.
yep, it's definitely getting in the habit.
Yep. So just honestly, we can. My thought was, at least for today, is always kind of give updates as to what's been going on in the CHAOSS project for the last couple weeks, for those who haven't been able to attend the weekly calls or any of the working group meetings. Does that sound okay for folks? Yeah, all right. So over the course of the, gosh, I'm glad that Don and Sean are both on here as well. You can all help me remember what we've done in the last 2 weeks. And Venu too. So I think maybe one of the biggest things over the last couple weeks is we've decided to not run CHAOSScon North America this summer, not even as a virtual event. I think with the so many virtual events that are going on, that we kind of thought time was best spent doing other activities that could benefit the CHAOSS project. So in that regard, we would like to encourage people to participate in the CHAOSS podcasts. So either listening to the CHAOSS podcasts or being a member of the CHAOSS podcast. So joining in for part of the conversation, that would be fantastic. I wonder if there would be use in having a podcast from folks in China, if that would be helpful at all, talking about how open source health is being considered in organizations in the Asia Pacific area. I don't know what people's thoughts are on that, but I think that's something that we could probably pretty easily arrange, no problem. Also, for those of you that have an interest, we would encourage you to set up blogs. So to start blogging about what your interests are, even with respect to open source community health, why you care about open source community health. So I think those are the two things that we're going to start focusing on this summer. So in the notes, could somebody go into the community minutes and drop, remember how we have some notes on the podcasts and the blogs, like how to participate?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can do that.
Just drop
okay.
the, thanks. Any other comments on CHAOSScon, on kind of what's going on there? All right. Our goal is to get CHAOSScon back up and running with FOSDEM in Brussels in 2021, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah, beyond our control.
Totally beyond our control. From a metrics perspective, work is being done in, oh, thanks, Venu. Hey, Venu, can you drop that link into the notes as well?
Sure, I'll do that.
Thanks. From a metrics perspective, a couple of the working groups have what we're calling rolling releases. So the CHAOSS project is on kind of a 6-month cadence of doing full metrics releases. But in between those 6 months, the working groups can do what we're calling continuous metrics releases or rolling releases, where you can release one metric at a time for public comment. I think there's one metric open right now for public comment. I think it's out of common. Am I right about that? It closes.
Yeah, we have the time to close metric that's currently in review for continuous release.
Yeah. So if you, oh, cool. So if you, I think Kevin has sent that out to the mail list a few times for open comment. But so I'll get that in there. Close is open for continuous. Could somebody drop, Don, do you have the,
Yeah, I'll clean up the notes. You keep going.
okay. I think that's it. Sean, I don't think there's any others that I'm missing.
No, no, there was a evolution continuous release one, I believe that went out, but that was before the last call.
Okay.
And those are, I think they're indicated on the website now in some way, or are they just indicated? I forget what we decided there.
In the GitHub repos.
In the GitHub repos, right? So.
And then once they're merged, then they're marked on the website as part of the continuous release. And then that little disclaimer will be removed when the regular release occurs.
I see. Yeah. So there, yeah, there are a couple. There should be a couple under evolution. I know Kevin and I were talking about when to do that because
Okay.
we were the first.
So from a metrics perspective, honestly, folks that are on this call, the way, just to kind of reemphasize, the way that we develop metrics in the CHAOSS project is really to propose metrics within a working group. So if you have a metric that you think is a reasonable thing to take a look at with respect to risk or with respect to evolution or with respect to diversity and inclusion, honestly, the working groups are very open to metrics that you are currently using within your organization. Sean, where's my mom? I'll mute you, Sean. um, metrics that you're using within your organization, metrics that you've discovered in academic writing, metrics that you think might be useful for others. So really the goal here is to encourage people to bring metrics ideas forward. And then in the working groups, we help you and work with you to get those metrics into a template that is standardized and readable for all. So for example, looking at Don leads the CHAOSS Common Working Group, and the time to close metric, I don't even have the foggiest idea where that began and who began it. Maybe you, maybe somebody else. But it was a metric that everybody thought was useful, or what was it? Yeah. So it was a metric that everybody thought was useful, and we worked together, gosh, over the course of probably a month or maybe a month and a half to formalize and articulate what that metric is as relevant for everybody. So as you have metrics, we do encourage you to bring them forward, and we will help you get them into a format that's useful and released for everybody, right?
Yeah, and we're always working on defining metrics in the various working groups too. So if you don't have anything specific that you want to work on, but you know that you want to help us define some metrics, you can show up to any of the working group meetings or have a look at the Zoom recordings or the notes from the meeting, and you can see what we're working on. And they're usually documents that you can just comment on or contribute to if you have some input. So there's lots of different ways to contribute. You don't necessarily need to bring a new metric, although those are certainly welcome because we're always trying to decide which metrics to work on next. And if somebody has one that is interesting to them, that generally pushes things up in the priorities.
Right on. Thank you.
Yeah, basically, if somebody wants to work on it, it gets priority.
Exactly.
It does. It's funny how that works. And if you're unsure where to, if you had a metric or you're unsure about where you think your efforts would be best spent in terms of a working group, bring it up here. We're happy to help kind of guide you as to where your efforts might be best spent in the CHAOSS project.
Mhm.
All right. So does anybody have any questions or comments about metrics and kind of what we're doing in that regard? I will bring it up here. It came up on the community call yesterday. Does anybody have any thoughts about when we should do the cadence for our regular releases? I think it's fair to even talk about it here. So typically we have done regular releases where we release, say, a dozen new metrics uh, in relation to conferences. And because conferences are going to get a little bit weird for a while, does anybody have thoughts on when we should do releases? Sean, I know you had a few comments yesterday, and I pushed you off till next week, but we could even start it a little bit here.
Yeah, I think, am I muted? I'm not muted. Okay. Yeah, I think, since we were doing it twice a year, I think twice a year seems like a good cadence. I think more than that, there's a bunch of work around the release process. So more than that just adds labor that I don't know that we need, since we have the interim release process going now. But a couple times a year, I think would show the world what we're doing on a more frequent basis. And the cadence of like OSS Summit North America, which is now at the end of June and July, early July, and FOSDEMs, it doesn't seem like those don't, like, obviously it's too late to do one for OSS NA because it had been in the fall historically, but that cadence doesn't seem wildly off to me.
Okay.
So twice a year.
Yeah, I'm kind of inclined for twice a year, and I do know that Kevin is the person who helps run the website and kind of package the metrics for release. So if you go to chaos.community/metrics, that work is done by Kevin. I do know that the continuous metrics release, like releasing those over the course of the 6 months, makes his job easier when we do a full release. You know what I mean? Like everything's kind of good to go. I'm kind of for the 6 month release. I like that. Um, the other thing I was
I do,
thinking,
I do too. I mean, it kind of acts as a forcing function, because the thing about continuous releases is that there's no deadline. Like, we just release things as we finish them. But I always feel like when there's a release coming up, there's some pressure to get a little bit more done. So I feel like as a working group, like in the common and diversity and inclusion, the ones that I participate in, I think the deadlines help us get more metrics out the door.
Absolutely. Yeah. Deadlines have a nice little forcing function.
okay, that sounds good. I might have a comment on that too, but I don't remember. Okay. Um, I think I agree, and I think we'll bring that up in the community call, the Tuesday community call next week, and kind of put clear to that. All right, so that's metrics, and then again the other part, the other half of the CHAOSS project is software, right? So we have it's almost like programs at this point is how I'm starting to think about it, because we have programs, software, and other initiatives that are intended to bring the software to light. I'm sorry, are intended to bring the metrics to light. So as we have, say, I'll just stick with the time to close metric. The metric definition by itself is useful, but it could be more useful if we can actually deploy that metric in a piece of software so we can get the results in front of people. So the CHAOSS project is always working on finding ways, whether it's in software or in, say, like the diversity and inclusion badging program, of bringing those metrics forward so people can actually use them to make meaningful decisions around community health. So one of the pieces of software, and Sean's on the call right now, is Augur, and Sean leads the Augur team. through students at Missouri, through people in the community, through Google Summer of Code at the moment. So Sean, do you have updates on Augur and kind of what's going on there?
Yeah, we just had a major release of Augur, and part of that major release was a lot of additional data, um, also verification of data, the addition of some new workers. If you want to familiarize yourself with Augur, the first link that I would share is, let me just share my screen. Host. Oh, if you let me share my screen, I can.
Got it.
Okay. So let's see. I can just show you. So this is the documentation, which I put a link in for, which is pretty helpful. It helps you. It's much more clear about how to set it up. We've got some really good Docker instructions now, a development guide that's emerging, um, some improving documentation for our REST API, which we're still working on, so that the RESTful API is in the same place. A lot of people use Augur just to call from things. And the other thing I would show you is we have a little insight thing that we're going to be making. There's a few changes we need to make here, but basically it shows you your most anomalous occurrences, where if you take a normal period, like say a year or 2 years to train, what are the types of events in which repos that are most outside of that normal range periodically. And then you can look at a group of repos. So these are Twitter repos, and you can see the total commits. And I don't know if you see my, and then you can see the issues. So you can see some repositories use GitHub issues, others don't. And if I go to the Twimoji project, for example, I can see who the major contributors are, lines per commit, and then something of a cadence for pull requests and issues per week, and also code changes per week. So you can see significant action for some reason here at the end of or beginning of 2020 for that repository. And that's what Augur does. In addition, in the back end, and I'm looking for documentation. I'm looking for the schema, but one of the cool parts of Augur is there's a lot more information in the schema. I don't know where, actually, this was just redone, so I don't know where the schema actually is in the documentation anymore, but we have fairly detailed information about pull requests issues. At this time, we have pull request information that includes all the files in the pull request, all of the commits in the pull request, and then that can be matched with commit data. And we have a mechanism that we're using to resolve contributors so that individuals who use multiple email addresses can be resolved to the same individual, which helps us understand how many different contributors a project really has. And we also have a very recently released, not quite, questions?
Don found the schema
Oh, awesome.
in the chat.
I use that one a lot. I'm not sure it's the most current version, but it's the
Yeah, I
one that
think
I have
there's
bookmarked.
some updates. I'm in the, since I'm sharing my screen right now, I have to go to chat, like in a funny way. Yeah, so this is the schema, which essentially everything is around a repo, if I can find that. I don't know if I can find repo contributors. This is looking crazy. Pull requests. Repos has got to be here somewhere. Message commits. Maybe repos down here. Repo. So repo is the main table. Everything's by repository, and there's some metadata we can get from GitHub and GitLab about each repo that we use to then validate things like test coverage, commits, pull requests, issues, that sort of thing. And so if you want to understand the data inside of an Augur schema, this link, which if someone could add to the notes, I'll figure out where it is also helpful. And very recently, we've released a Slack bot for Augur. And what the Slack bot does is it gets messages from what we call the insight worker that is tied very closely to the insights on your insight page. And essentially will send you however many of the most anomalous insights you want to see every day. So I'll allow that. I don't know which group this is, but I will allow Augie to see it. And then it says, I'm going to click add to Slack at the bottom, tell Augie my Slack workspace to start tracking, specify the URL. So and right now I have to know the port that we're working on. So I have to hit apply. I believe that one's on 5003 sharp, so. Oops, I did it wrong in twitter.labs.io. Apply, and then I'll see, I can decide which repos that I want to track. I think actually I have this functionality where I could just move them all at once now. And I can say I want to watch commit count, new contributors, lines changed, issue, whatever, and maybe I only want the 10 most anomalous issues a day. And that saves my Augie settings. And then all I have to do is add Augie to Slack. And it's going to say, here's the things that Augie needs to have access to in my Slack channel. So this is my personal place in a Slack channel. And then I will have messages that I exchange with Augie below. So if I type Augie, I can ask Augie, you can see that I'm already subscribed. I can say what repos, just ask a basic question like that. And Augie should respond with, okay, these are the repos that I'm currently tracking. And this is where I can go to edit that list of repos that I'm tracking. And the only reason we haven't widely publicized this yet is I want to get rid of the need to specify the port that your back end of Augur is running on. So actually you didn't see I didn't share my Slack actually, right? Or actually you did see the Slack, didn't you?
Yeah,
you saw it.
What does an anomaly look like?
So it's a statistical anomaly.
What would it look like in Slack?
So it's a I think it's not a random forest. I think it's not a random forest. It's some other kind of machine learning algorithm that is essentially looking for, over a period of say 1,000 days, what's the normal level of behavior for comments on an issue in a repository. And if you have some event detected in that repository for that metric that's outside of the range of what is normal, like the machine learning or Bayesian equivalence of standard deviations, then it queues up all of those anomalies every day. And at the beginning of every day, anomalies mean like, okay, so let's say normally.
But what does
Normally, let's
what
say
does it
normally.
actually look like in Slack? When I get the Slack message, I get what the
Oh, I see. Okay, got it.
And the
Um,
anomalies are on a per repo basis, so it analyzes it, it knows what's anomalous for one repo, which is not necessarily anomalous for another repo. Is that how the machine
correct,
learning works? Okay.
correct. It's all based on the repo. So the way that it works is um, each morning at 9 a.m. UTC, which was what we decided would be the standard time of day. We'll make it configurable later, but that basically prevents Europeans and Americans from getting a bunch of anomaly notifications as they're leaving work each day. And we'll work it out to detect local time zones in a very near release. So for each day, instead of Augie sending you a bunch of messages, like in this case, I've said 10 replies, it'll send one message and then it'll thread each of the different anomalies and let me see, what the nature of those anomalies are.
do those links provide? Do any of them provide links to visualizations, or do they
Right,
just?
right now, they just provide links back to the GitHub repo
Okay.
so that you can look at that. In the future, there are two things we want to provide. One is a link back to that dashboard that I showed you.
Yeah.
And the other is a link to, we may actually, we're working on the development of endpoints, API endpoints that actually send visualizations. So
Okay.
we're working on Augie actually providing a visualization with the message um, as well.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
You muted.
we're pretty excited. And the Google Summer of Code students are working on some really interesting projects. We've got 3 folks working on machine learning related things, and one person really interested in feedback. So right now, if you click a link or thumbs up or thumbs down or whatever on any of Augie's messages, that we will capture that feedback and then use that to
Sean,
different algorithms
you're, you're frozen.
supervise for the particular user. Yes. Am I frozen?
Yes.
Hmm. Am I still frozen?
Your voice isn't, or it is. There, you're better. No, all right. The tour. You're muted.
On the microwave in the kitchen, and I think it was the microwave turning on actually that, like, when she turned on the microwave, it froze.
Yeah,
Or maybe that's not it.
well, thank you for the Augur demo. So just so folks know as well, there's a second piece
I,
of software.
I just switched to my 5 gig network. Let's see if that makes it any better.
Okay. So there's another piece of software called Grimoire Lab, and I'll work to get some folks from Grimoire Lab on this call to also do demos of their software. I do know that Venu, right? You're working with Grimoire Lab this summer. Um, uh, and like the metrics working groups, Augur and Grimoire Lab both have weekly or bi-weekly meetings that you can join to ask questions about the technology, to contribute to the technology. So feel free to join those as well.
Yeah, right now I think Bitergia is, or Grimoire Lab is doing bi-weekly. We're doing weekly right now, only because we have a number of Google Summer of Code students, and we think we're going to have a lot of new things to talk about. And it's also a way that I'd like to engage those students in the community. So
I've added in the minutes just the link to our participate page for all of these working groups, whether it's metrics or software. So feel free to check that out. There's also a calendar via that page, I believe. Sean, you're muted, maybe.
I was talking to my daughter, so it's probably best.
So you can check out when all of these working groups meet, or if you, again, just want to bring your requests to this meeting and we can help from there, no problem at all. All right. Any other things from folks? Anybody wants to bring up?
Hi, I'm a postgraduate student from China.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I've participated in some of your working groups and especially focus on the DI working groups. And I've been particularly interested in the DI badging program. So, and I'm considering applying for the GSOD. And since the program idea have already been approved by Google, right?
Yes.
I wonder during this phase, apart from getting to know more about the project and involve myself with mentors and maintainers, what other things should I do? Like, should I write my proposal as soon as possible, or is there any task that must be accomplished thus to be eligible for the application?
Sure. So thanks for your interest. That's great. So I think just so you know, process-wise, I think I don't think Google has assigned the number of slots per organization yet. So I still think we're waiting on the Google season of docs to determine how many people we can support. So I think that's still, so I would wait on the application right now, just in terms of, I'm not sure how many slots we're going to have. But I'm happy to communicate with you. There's also, are you on Slack?
No.
Because there is a group that is working on the badging program, and it's a couple folks who are in the CHAOSS project regularly, and a couple people. One is an outreachy student, and one is a Google Summer of Code student who are also working on the project. And that may be a great place for you to connect as well. I'm on that channel as well. And we could kind of talk through what our goals and objectives are with respect to the badging program if you'd like to be part of that.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you. I'm going to put my email address in the notes. Are you connected to the notes?
Okay.
And you can just send me a note and we can get that set up. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thanks for your interest. Other comments from folks? All right. Well, I'll connect with King and see what we can. I'll be a little bit more diligent on the agenda. 8 a.m. seems to sneak up on me fairly quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
Like poof.
It's kind of it's kind of like 8 a.m. meeting. Okay, rock and roll.
And I'll also work to make sure this goes out on the list to get the announcement out. So, and if you have things, please feel free to just send them either directly to me or to add them to this document. We're really all open for things that people want to talk about on this call, right? So with that, I think I'll stop the recording and say thank you for everybody for coming. And again, we'll be on this call in 2 weeks.